This video is sponsored by Sugoi Mart. More about them later. Welcome to Pokemon Emerald Sea Glass, a gorgeous ROM hack created by Nemo622 that revisualizes Pokemon Emerald with a retro Game Boy Color aesthetic. The game features every Pokemon from the first 3 generations, improved enemy teams, and even some brand new features you won't find in any other game. Emerald Sea Glass is the ultimate feel-good gaming experience, but because I'm me, I decided to squash any chance of comfy cozy feeling by attempting a hardcore Nuzlocke. In a Nuzlocke, if a Pokemon faints in battle, it's dead forever, and I can only catch the first encounter I find on each route. Hardcore Nuzlockes add a bunch of other rules, but because this game is not a difficulty hack, I decided to add even more rules to make things even harder. I am unwell. A broken person. My starter, based on democratic polling of chat, is Torchio the Torchic. Don't try to parse the naming theme for this one, it'll give you a stroke. Torchio has Defiant, hinting at what you will soon discover to be a litany of ridiculous buffs to just about every Pokemon in the game. Example number 2, from the PC in my room, I get Sphale the Spheal, who has the ability Fur Coat, and the move Bouncy Bubble, which is one of those busted moves from Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Hopefully the enemy trainers don't get access to these absurd moves. Right? On Route 103, I catch Wordle the Weedle. On Route 102, I catch Brellsprout the Adaptability Bellsprout, and after strolling through the gorgeous riverside city of Petalburg, I head to Route 104 where I catch Meryl the Meryl. A Wurmple from Petalburg Woods disrespects Torchio by hitting him with a poison sting, so I kill her where she stands. Who needs a freaking Wurmple anyways? Psh. Rustboro City is definitely the coolest location so far, and not just because of the sick architecture that would make even Frank Lloyd Wright marvel in awe, but also because it's home to the Wishing Well, where I can use a wishing piece to score a random Pokemon. Who knows what sort of rare and powerful Pokemon we'll get from this benevolent magical well. Just kidding, we get a Nidoran. I actually have no idea if you can literally get any Pokemon from here, but if you can, Nidoran is pretty underwhelming. North of the city, I get my last 2 encounters. Sketty the Skitty, who even in this ROM hack still sucks, and Metatita the Metatite, who according to her Pokedex entry can fly?
I can fly! Anybody can fly! If you believe in yourself the way I believe in myself tonight, you will fly!
So with a team of 6 absolute units, it's time to face off against Roxanne. I know that enemy teams are moderately buffed in this game, but based on my extra hardcore rule set, I'm not allowed to look up what those changes are. The first change is that Roxanne leads with an Anorith instead of her usual twin Geodudettes. Fortunately, Meryl handles the prehistoric bug with just a few bubble beams, using up Roxanne's potions in the process. Second then is predictably Laleep, and I have the perfect man for the job. Okay, well not the perfect man, but I have a man. With double kicks and a disregard for critical hits that might end Nidoran's life, our buck-toothed rabbit, maybe, defeats his enemy with 4 HP to spare. That just leaves Nosepass, and if she's left untouched from baseline Emerald, we should be okay. Brellsprout hits a Vine Whip for solid damage before I switch to Metatita, who, with assistance from the same apathy for potential critical hits that I showed Nidoran, is able to get the KO with a few confusions and win us the very first gym badge. What is wrong with Roxanne's face? Why does she look like that? The new level cap means that a handful of my teammates can evolve. Then by heading to Dewford Town, yet another absolutely stunning display of pixel art, I can catch Yanam the Yanma. After delivering Mr. Sone's letter to Steven, who wears capes now, good for him, I charge headfirst into the fight against the second gym leader, Brawly. With an arsenal of Pokemon that all resist fighting type moves, I'm not too worried about whatever this dude will throw at me. His lead Makuhita, for example, is no problem for Metatita. Sure, knockoff isn't the best thing to see here, given that I intentionally gave every single one of my Pokemon an Oranberry, but 2 confusions is more than enough to get the kill and bring in Brawly's second Pokemon. Alright, Metatite eats, like, a bug bite, right? Oh, me. Yeah, so that's a bulk up Heracross in the second gym, and I got nothing for this guy. My best bet is Meryl, who can at least resist the massive knockoffs that he uses to ruthlessly start murdering my teammates, but alright, well that's game. Well, a surprise bullet seed tech is pretty brutal, but not all surprises are a bad thing. And speaking of surprises, I've got something special to show you from Sugoi Mart, an online store that sells trendy collectible items directly from Japan. This is their new 30 Days of Japan Advent Calendar, featuring a month full of fun little surprises. Get it? That's the ad segue. Every day for 30 days, you'll open a new cubby and discover exclusive items including toys, collectibles, and snacks. Or if you don't believe in the concept of delayed gratification, you can open everything immediately. Kind of weird, but you do you. I don't want to spoil too many of the surprises because that's part of the fun, but you can expect collectibles of characters from iconic brands like Kirby from Kirby and Lugia from Mario and Lugia Brothership. Plus, there's all sorts of Japanese treats like these little marshmallow pillows. Whatever they are, they're delicious and I'm out of them and I'm upset. Advent calendars are a great holiday tradition, and the 30 Days of Japan calendar makes the perfect holiday gift for anybody who enjoys anime, video games, or good food, and that's pretty much all of you. But you can also enjoy the calendar in any other month of the year. I cannot stress how little I can do to stop you. So if you want to experience Sugoi Mart's Advent calendar and support my channel in the process, click the link in the description and use my code Flygon10 to get 10% off your 30 Days of Japan calendar. Thanks so much to Sugoi Mart for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back to the challenge. With Heracross now feeding on the remains of my team from Attempt 1, there's nothing to do but start over and try again. Maybe in Attempt 2, we'll get lucky and find a Flying-type Pokemon that checks Brawly's Heracross. Oh, ew, this Torchio isn't Defiant? Pass. Maybe in Attempt 3, we'll get lucky and find a Flying-type Pokemon that checks Brawly's Heracross. Oddly enough, many of my first few encounters are the same as in Attempt 1, though I do decide to skip out on the uber-busted Sphail this time around. Important new Pokemon include Silsoon from Petalburg Woods, Chonglong the Psychic Steel-type Chingling from Rustboro City, and Windsub from Rusturf Tunnel. Now that I know Roxanne's team, she's pretty easy to deal with, though without Metatita, it requires going all in on Bellsprout 2.0, who uses 4 hits from Bullet Seed to clinch us a quick victory. With that, we're back to Dewford Town in record time, and with a Beautifly on the squad, I have a much better feeling about our chances against Brawly's Heracross. And I feel even better when I catch Zillow the Talo right outside of Brawly's gym. Spyduck from Route 106 and Makuta from Granite Cave are our other 2 island encounters, but with that, we're ready for round 2 against Brawly. By pre-poisoning Zillow, we can ensure a Guts boost, meaning that Wing Attack is more than enough to get the KO on Makuhita. Unfortunately, Zillow has a minus speed nature and a speed IV of 7, so Brawly's Heracross is able to outspeed and use Bulk Up, meaning that we don't come close to getting a one-shot with Wing Attack. And with a Citrus Berry, Heracross gets back enough HP that even if we could get off another hit, that one probably wouldn't kill either. Not that we'll ever know, because with a knockoff, Heracross kills Zillow and I whip out the roll of 2-ply for what imminently seems to be another wipe. Oh, also, you might notice that Heracross is at level 20, even though the level cap is at 19. That's because one of my extra hardcore rules is that I'm playing on hard mode, which, as far as I know, just increases the levels of enemy Pokemon. Anyways, my only hope now is that Silsoon the Beautifly is fast enough and strong enough to one-shot Heracross with Gust. Beautifly did get a filthy buff to her special attack and speed, and defense and special defense, but it's still gonna be a total toss-up as to whether we get this kill. So let's see it, Silsoon. Okay! At long last, the Heracross has been defeated. Golly, if only we had a Beautifly in Attempt 1. Brawly's last Pokemon is the far less intimidating Metatite, so with just a few more gusts, we've defeated the second gym leader of Emerald Sea Glass. Attempt 3 is the run, baby. But Brawly's Heracross did leave some scars. And I don't just mean my dead pigeon. I'm talking about mental scars. These kinds of wounds, they last and they last. For the rest of this playthrough, I'm on high alert, anxiously anticipating danger to be lurking around every corner. The next run-ender could appear on any team. I mean, if they gave Binky Boy Brawly a Heracross, who knows what they could give Wally— oh, it's still just a Ralts. Well, before we flatten Ralts like a toddler-sized pancake, I gotta take you back to Slateport City to experience one of the coolest additions to Emerald Sea Glass. A man next to the Poke Center offers an express ride to Pacific Lodge Town, where I can participate in the underwater safari, a Hawaiian spin on the bug-catching catching contest from Johto. The goal is to catch the coolest Pokemon, and who knows what sort of rare and exotic Pokemon are in this deep sea biome. Seriously, who? Because it's not me. I catch a Lotad, which with a pitiful score of 243 means I lose to Tycho's horny goldfish. But as a consolation prize, I get a magnet, how do they work, and the HM for waterfall, meaning that this detour wasn't a total waste of time. So where were we? Right, toddler-sized pancake. As I prepare for Watson, my mind starts to swirl with the possibilities of what his buff team might include. Jolteon, Electabuzz, Lantern, Zapdos? Okay, well probably not Zapdos. Fortunately, with a Moonstone, I can evolve Nidoran into Nidoking, granting us an actually powerful ground type. No offense, Winsub, you cute AF, but Mud Bomb just ain't cutting it. Anyways, our Watson team also features our newest pickup, Loomise, the now fairy type Illumise. A fitting addition, given that Watson leads with Loomise's biological counterpart, who, as you might be able to intuit, is now a bug electric type. Fortunately, the bioluminescent bug just repeatedly clicks Infestation, which lets Nidoran slowly chip away at him with chip away. It takes a long time, and by the time our button-nosed foe goes down, Nidoran is at but 19 HP, just enough for the Magneton that comes in next to snipe him off with a Sonic Boom, so I decide to switch to Makuta, who does big damage with Vital Throw, but thanks to a confusion, he needs to switch back to Nidoran, who can finish the job with a double kick. Watson's Manectric is third, so Loomise comes in to beat the dog down with Charms as he desperately attempts to activate the Twilight Bark. But that's obviously a losing battle for our enemy, and Loomise is even able to slowly get off a few struggle bugs to lower his special attack as well. It's not long until Manectric is utterly neutered, and then not much longer after that Loomise gets her first KO. So all that remains is Watson's mysterious fourth Pokemon, the mighty, terrifying... Wait, let me get this straight. Brawly got a bulk up Heracross, while Watson got a Volbeat and an Alopecia sheep. Cool, well Chonglong the Chimecho easily kills Flaffy, meaning that we've won the battle against Watson and earned the third gym badge. And with that, we're free to take on the wonders of northwestern Hoenn, which in Emerald Sea Glass is a visual delight. Every location as gorgeous as the one before, from the rugged mountainside of Route 112 to the steam-filled tunnels of Fiery Path, from the soot-covered fields of Route 113 to the fruitful orchards of Falarbor Town, and from the booming caverns of Meteor Falls to the molten magma of Mount Chimney, the art design in this game is truly a sight to behold. The only thing better than the natural beauty of Sea Glass Hoenn is the embarrassment of riches that are my encounters along the way. Panphy, Bagel, Swabla, Duxel, Machop Tua, all will be important to the future of the run. Oh, also Winsub traded in his indelible cuteness for raw, unfettered power by evolving into Mamoswine, which he can do in this game. Yay ROM hacks! So with another absolutely stacked team, we prepare to face off against Flannery, who, even if you ignore that you can get significantly better encounters when compared to Vanilla Emerald, is still actually easier in Emerald Sea Glass simply because her battle has permanent misty terrain as a result of the fog in her gym. This means that her Torkoal, still the only Pokemon that remains remotely a threat, can now no longer paralyze my teammates with Body Slam. It takes some time to whittle her down since our best Pokemon are all physical attackers, but eventually Panphy the Donphan gets the KO with Bulldoze. Then Spiduck, now a water psychic type Golduck, gets the last remaining kill on Camerupt, so the fourth gym badge is ours. After a short sidetrack to the deserts of Route 111, where I fittingly catch G-Blade the Trapinch, I make my way back to Petalburg City for the fight against my father. Again, my mind floods with the possibilities of what surprises Norman might have. Sea Glass has largely taken its metaphorical foot off the difficulty gas pedal since the run ender that was Heracross, but this game could decide to floor it at any moment, and I need to be ready. At first glance, though, Norman's team remains the same. Despite Spinda's moderate buffs, Machop Tua still one-shots that thing with a low sweep, which brings in Slacking second. So I switched to Duxel the Dusclops as Slacking Loafs, which I'm only now noticing is definitely a bug since this is Slacking's first turn out. Kinda confused how I didn't notice that in the moment at all, but perhaps it's because it doesn't really matter. Duxel can burn Slacking with Will-O-Wisp, and then through a series of switches to play around boosted facades, Makuta can can eventually get the KO with a few Vital Throws. That brings in Vigoroth, who pulls out a surprise normal gem boosted Slash, though with our hefty sumo wrestler at full HP, it doesn't do enough damage to stop him from taking the KO with 2 Vital Throws. But Norman's still got one more surprise left, and that's his final Pokemon, Politoed. Admittedly, Politoed is the normalest of the frog-like Pokemon, so I guess I can understand why he gets a secondary normal typing here. And despite some pretty strong body slams, there's nothing Machop 2 does better than Revenge, which gets a clean KO on Kermit to net us the 5th gym badge. En route to Fortree City, I catch the little fly that was robbed from me in Attempt 1, and in Fortree City, I fish up a Remoraid named Raymord, recipient of one of the coolest buffs in Emerald Sea Glass. Well, actually, Remoraid still sucks, but Octillery got all sorts of changes, including the Water-Fire typing and the ability Mega Launcher, though neither of those are nearly as sick as Octazooka now functioning as a Water-Fire Flying Press. That is a really creative way to give Octillery a much-needed niche. A quick trip to New Mauville means that I can catch Votlorb, who rounds out my team, no pun intended, with a speedy electric type right in time for the fight against Winona. In Sea Glass, she's replaced her lead Swablu with a moderately more intimidating Fearow, and anticipating Drill Run, I use Volt Switch from Votlorb for big damage and a free switch to Panphy, a rather questionable team inclusion given that she has very limited ways to hit Winona's flying types. Not really sure what I was thinking there. After Winona uses a Hyper Potion and we hit Fearow with a Body Slam, I now anticipate a Drill Peck, which should grant me a safe switch back to Votlorb. Okay, well, never punished. Another Volt Switch kills Fearow and grants a safe switch to Winsub. This brings in Pelipper though, so I just switch back to Votlorb, who takes their second kill with another Volt Switch, granting yet another safe switch to Winsub. That brings in Skarmory, so I swap to Raymord on a quad-resisted Steel Wing. A Flying Gem boosted Aerial Ace temporarily shocks me until I see the damage output. Our Water-Fire Octazooka is super effective, but still requires 2 hits to get the KO, so Skarmory does get off a second Aerial Ace that triggers our held Citrus Berry. Nevertheless, Raymord did his job, and with Winona down to just 2 Pokemon, she brings in Tropius next. A Pokemon that, admittedly, I don't have great answers to. I mean, we obviously have Winsub with quad-effective Ice-type attacks, but in Sea Glass, Tropius can have the ability Thick Fat, and I'm willing to bet Winona's does. So instead of switching, I decide to stay in with Raymord, who, after Tropius sets up a Sunny Day, goes for an Aurora Beam that indeed confirms my suspicions about the chonky dino. On the next turn, I have no choice but to tank a teensy tiny Solar Beam, which Raymord does just fine, letting him fire off a sun-boosted Flame Burst. On the next turn, I switch out to Duxel on a second Solar Beam, which mercifully does less than 50%. Unfortunately, on the following turn, Winona heals, meaning that my plan to snipe Tropius off with a priority Shadow Sneak is foiled, though this does reveal a quirk in the Sea Glass Emerald enemy AI, namely that it prioritizes getting a kill over using healing items, which is different than in Vanilla Emerald. Nevertheless, by tanking another Solar Beam with Duxel, I can use Disable to prevent Tropius from doing any meaningful damage to Winsub, who comes in and takes the KO with a few Ice Fangs. This did require a gamble that Tropius wouldn't have another Grass-type move, but it seems that if a gym leader's Pokemon are the same as they are in Vanilla Emerald, they usually just have the same moveset, so this was a bit of an educated guess more than a gamble. Regardless, a critical hit from Tropius would have been a disaster there, and we're lucky to have made it out of that matchup in one piece. I mean, there's still Winona's Altaria, who is now Dragon Fairy typing, meaning that she no longer takes quadruple damage from Ice-type moves, but still she can't really threaten Winsub with much damage, and even if she could, she doesn't get the chance to do so, since Winona gets greedy and goes for 2 Dragon Dances. After 2 Ice Fangs, a final priority Ice Shard gets the kill and wins us not necessarily the hardest gym battle ever, but it certainly wasn't the cakewalk that the last 3 have been. And since the next gym battle against Tate and Liza can be one of the hardest in Vanilla Emerald, I'm anticipating that they'll be pretty tough in Emerald Sea Glass as well. Along the way to Moss Deep City, I pick up a few new encounters, the most notable being Bozzle the Absol, Shupt the Ghost Normal type Shuppet, and Downhoom the Houndoom, all of which will hopefully be very useful against Tate and Liza's Psychic types. Now, admittedly, there are some fairly difficult fights in both Magma and Aqua hideouts. Emerald Sea Glass has really diversified the types types of Pokemon that Grunt will use, which can result in some pretty tenuous double battles. In no world was I expecting to face off against an Electivire and Frostlass duo in Aqua Hideout. Nevertheless, we managed to arrive in Moss Deep City without any problems. But this isn't the breezy island city I know and love. This place is hell on earth. The place where friends and dreams alike come to die. And before we leave, this island will claim much more than its fair share of new innocent victims. Our first island trial is the fight against Tate and Liza. They lead with Claydol and Mismagius, the latter being a particular surprise given that he is not a psychic type. He is a ghost fairy type, which means that Diet Fluttermane theoretically threatens both Spiduck and Bosel for super effective damage. I decide to switch Bosel into Chonglong, but keep Spiduck in so that we can start dealing damage to Claydol, though much to my disappointment, Claydol ends up being faster than Spiduck, and our Water Pulse does shockingly little damage. Now anticipating Shadow Ball on Chonglong, I switch back to Bosel, but my heart drops as Mismagius sets up a Calm Mind. Claydol also sets up Light Screen, so now Water Pulse does significantly less damage. This is pretty bad, and it immediately becomes clear that I'm not gonna win this fight without making some sacrifices. Still, as a speedy dark type, I don't want to lose Bosel for no reason, so I again switch him into Chonglong, and then Mismagius snipes down Spiduck with a Moonblast. Really not what you want to see, especially given that thanks to the way Gen 3 double battles work, I need to immediately bring in Duxel, who has to eat an admittedly pretty soft Earthquake from Claydol. At this point though, I need a momentum swing. I can't afford to keep switching, which means that I'm risking both Duxel and Chonglong to Shadow Balls for Mismagius. I figure that the best bet is to guarantee a hit with Shadow Sneak, but that does brutally little damage. I'm floundering here, and it gets worse as Mismagius goes for a second Calm Mind. Though this does let Chonglong hit the juiced up Phantom with a Yawn. And the fact that Tate and Liza went for a second Calm Mind instead of just taking the kill actually suggests that Mismagius maybe doesn't even have a ghost type move. If that's the case, Chonglong is relatively safe here, and as one of my original teammates, I really hope that's the case, because it pains me to think that I may have to say goodbye here. On the next turn, Duxel goes for another chunk of damage with Shadow Sneak, and then it's time for Mismagius to play God. Which of my two Pokemon will he allow to live, and which will he send to the gates of hell? With a +2 boosted Moonblast, his target is Duxel, further supporting that Mismagius probably doesn't have a ghost type move. Duxel's death is sad, yes, but if he had to die so that sweet Chonglong could live, well then so be it. Bosel comes back in as Claydol goes for another Psychic, and Chonglong hits them with a second Yawn. With Mismagius now asleep, Bosel is free to take the KO with a Night Slash, which forces in Soul Rock. After a soft Earthquake from the drowsy Dreidel, Chonglong rips a Flash Cannon that does nearly 50% to Soul Rock even through Light Screen. And with that wearing off at the end of the turn, the winds are suddenly blowing in our favor, and they are billowing. Bosel kills Solrock with a Night Slash, bringing in Tate and Liza's final Pokemon. Claydol takes their mandatory turn of sleep, and then another Flash Cannon tears through Lunatone, triggering their held Citrus Berry. On the next turn, another Night Slash kills Lunatone, Claydol stays asleep, and with one final Flash Cannon from Chonglong, we win the battle and the 7th Gym Badge. It was nothing short of a miracle that Mismagius didn't have a Ghost-type move. If he did, Chonglong was almost certainly dead, and there was a very good chance that we would have wiped. So all I can do is count my lucky stars and thank the Duck Brothers for their sacrifice. Quack, quack, boys. Quack, quack. So now we've made it to the final Team Magma fights at the Moss Deep Space Center, which culminates in a multi-battle with Steven against Maxie and his trusty admin Tabitha. You can only use 3 Pokemon in this fight, so I carefully select Wellmar, the Waterspout, and Wailord, in addition to Team Staples, Meryl, and Chonglong. The hope is that with Steven's help, these 3 will be enough to make it through whatever this fight has in store for us. All right. Let's see it. I've been tricked. Okay. Well. Oh. So Steven was like, I'ma sit this one out. This is what analysts would call unideal. But the silver lining is that I did at least remember to bring a full team of 6 Pokemon. Wellmar immediately tanks a Venoshock from Crobat for solid damage. Chonglong then reveals that he's somehow faster than Glysaur and hits Wellmar's assailant with a super effective extrasensory for solid damage, but since Glysaur then doubles up on the fish, his Water Spout does pitiful damage to both Pokemon. It doesn't even kill Crobat. And not wanting to bury Wellmar, the size of that grave would require renting a bulldoze, which is just not in the budget, I switch him into Windsub as Maxie follows suit by switching Glysaur into Shiftry. Unexpected for sure, but after tanking a Leech Life from Crobat, Chonglong gets the first KO of the fight with a second extrasensory. This, however, brings out Ursa freaking Luna. Looks like Seaglass finally floored that difficulty gas pedal. So I decide on a double switch. Windsub into Brellspout and Chonglong into Torchio, now an all-powerful Blaziken. The switches go relatively unpunished as Brellspout just gets hit by a Fake Out and Torchio gets nailed by a Yawn. So from here, it seems like we've got 2 easy kills in front of us. But on the next turn... What the f*** is that? What? Okay, please kill this Ursaluna. No! Torchio's gonna die! What? No, Torchio! No! Just like that, I've lost my starter. It feels like it was just yesterday that Torchio and I were frolicking through Little Root Town, and now he's gone forever. Needless to say, I was angry. That was an adaptability Leaf Storm. What the hell? Fortunately, the rest of the fight is less disastrous. Windsub kills Shiftry with Ice Shard, bringing in Dodrio, and stupid Brellspout finishes off Ursaluna with Bullet Seed, bringing in Camerupt. Dodrio is ground flying type in this game, one of the more logical type changes to be honest, so after switching Brellspout out into Meryl, another Ice Shard gets the clean KO on the 3-headed Dodo. Glysaur then comes back in as Camerupt goes for Yawn, so one more turn is all it takes to win the battle, but I was not handling things well at all. What's the point? What's the point of going on? I am still stunned that an adaptability Leaf Storm didn't one-shot Ursaluna. That is an effectively 520 base power attack, but it does make a little more sense when I discover that Brellspout has a special attack IV of 1. All the more damning when you know that every Pokemon in this game is guaranteed to have at least 2 perfect IVs. Torchio's death will not be soon forgotten, and everything we do will be to honor his legacy. In comparison to Maxie, Archie might as well be Wally. Yes, he has a harder team than in Vanilla Emerald, but it's nothing even remotely as challenging as the bullshit we dealt with at the Space Center. It isn't long until we're calling up Rayquaza to deal with the dueling Kyogre and Groudon, resulting in a cutscene that is understandably, but also disappointingly, not reimagined in the rest of the game's retro aesthetic. So with that, we're free to face off against the final gym leader, Juan, but he's fairly underwhelming. Most of his Pokemon are simply hard-walled by Lopad, the now fully evolved Ludicolo spamming Giga Drain. Kingdra is the only one that is potentially a bit scary. Despite hitting Swablu with a surprise Ice Gem boosted Ice Beam on the Switch that also freezes, it's still fine because we have Meryl as backup. And it's not like Kingdra will get a second freeze. You know, this is why Arceus invented Lumberries. By somehow dodging Water Pulse Confusion, Meryl is now free to hit Kingdra with a Play Rough. It's not enough for the kill, so Kingdra heals, but with just a Hyper Potion, he doesn't get back to full HP, and therefore falls to our second Play Rough, which, by the way, is 100% accurate in this game like it should be. Brellspout moderately redeems himself for the Ursaluna blunder by using Leaf Blade to take out Octillery, Celio, and Whiscash, so that's the 8th and final gym badge obtained. The Pokemon League is now just a few battles away, none of which are remotely difficult, so all I gotta do is come up with my final team of 6 Pokemon, which when you have no idea what the Elite Four has, can be pretty difficult to do. Sure, we know the types of each trainer, but the Pokemon they have, they could be identical to Vanilla Emerald, or they could be completely different. Does Sydney have a Psychic Dark type to stop Fighting type sweeps? Does Phoebe have another Mismagius? Glacia has to have a more diverse team than in Vanilla Emerald, and Drake could very well have 6 different pseudo-legends. Anything's possible, and I need to be ready for all of it. Now, thankfully, things become a little easier as I get my Pokemon to the level cap of 55, where they start learning absolutely absurd moves. Shupt learns Rage Fist and Bitter Blade, Swablu learns Torch Song, and Winsub learns freaking Glacial Lance. So they're all coming to the Elite Four for sure. The final team consists of Brellspout, let's hope he doesn't disappoint again, Meryl, our hardworking physical fairy type, Xianglong, the comfort pick and team mascot, we can't not bring him, Winsub, the unstoppable bulky ice type, Swablu, the dragon fairy sweeper, and Shupt, the hard Phoebe counter. So there's nothing left to do but see if these 6 have what it takes to beat Emerald Sea Glass. First up is Sydney, and though he's made a few changes, none of them stop Swablu from tearing apart his 5 Pokemon with Choice Specs Moonblast. Absol is the only one of his Pokemon that's faster, but since he simply sets up Swords Dance, the very first member of the Elite Four is an easy damageless sweep. If they're all that simple, all 6 of my teammates will be able to ride off into the sunset without a problem, though I highly doubt that'll be the case. Phoebe is second, and as usual, she leads with Dusclops. Shupt is holding a Person Berry such that he's free to take the kill with a few attacks, while also shrugging off Dusclops' Confuse Ray. Dusknoir is second, and though Phantom Force is again not a one-shot, Shupt only needs to tank a Raging Fury, which is a move I did not know existed until this moment. Apparently, it's Fire-type Thrash, but regardless, another Phantom Force gets the second KO. Against the Mirror, I swap out, electing to bring in Swablu on what ends up being a Thunderbolt, indicating that this Banette probably has an identical moveset to the atrocious moveset from Baseline Emerald. 2 Moonblasts get the KO as Miss Magius comes in 4th, and in a moment of sheer stupidity, I completely forget about Swablu's weakness to Fairy-type moves, so she gets nailed by a devastating, super effective Moonblast that comes 14 hit points away from getting the kill. Well, Winsub's holding a Choice Scarf, so I bring her in on a Shadow Ball and take the kill with a Glacial Lance. Phoebe's last Pokemon is Frostlass, so I switch to Meryl. A Will-O-Wisp means that our Liquidation doesn't do as much damage as I'd hope, but it should be enough for Winsub to come back in and get the KO with an Earthquake. Frustratingly, she comes in on an Infernal Parade, which is Hisuian Typhlosion's signature move, and that causes another burn, forcing one last switch to Shupt, who then takes the KO through burn with a Rage Fist. Not the cleanest battle in the world, but we're on to Glacia, and that's all that matters. She leads with Dewgong, a Pokemon that ends up taking way more resources to deal with than I was anticipating. Xianglong can put him to sleep, and Meryl can do great damage with Choice Scarf Superpower, but since he's bulky enough to survive the hit, Glacia heals, so by the time we get the kill 2 turns later, Meryl's already taken a sizable chunk of damage from the switch-in and Hail Chip. As Walrein comes in second, I gotta switch back out into Xianglong on a Body Slam, but since we outspeed to get off a Yawn, and Walrein's Surf does surprisingly little damage, it's fairly safe to use Recover and slowly whittle away at Walrein with Flash Cannon. After just a few hits, I switch to Brellspout on another Surf, and then with a Leaf Blade, he gets the KO. I think it's safe to say he's fully redeemed himself at this point. Glaceon is third, which is spooky, but my plan is Winsub, whose Thick Fat ability makes him a solid answer to what I can only assume is just a Blizzard bot. Unfortunately, Glaceon also reveals a Chilling Water tech, which doesn't do much damage, but does lower our attack every time we get hit. Slack Off means I can stay pretty healthy though, and after a few turns of doing chip damage, I switch to Shupt. With a Choice Band, I was hoping that a Bitter Blade would be enough damage to kill Glaceon from here even after a Chilling Water drop, but it does come up just shy. Fortunately, Glaceon takes the opportunity to set up Hail, so after a full restore, 2 more Bitter Blades are enough to get the KO and keep Shupt at full HP minus the Hail Chip. Glacia brings in Cloyster, another Water Ice type, and if this thing has Shell Smash, I am beyond screwed. I start with a switch to Swablu on a Hydro Pump that misses. Our enemy has terrible special defense, and even if he survives a hit here, Swablu has the ability Fluffy, which halves the damage of physical attacks, so I'm assuming I'm pretty safe to just fire off a Moonblast. The Bivalve does survive though, and then... yeah, so Fluffy only halves the damage of attacks that make contact, which Icicle Crash does not. So that's 2 fights in a row where Swablu barely lives to see another day. But she's a fighter. Fearing Ice Shard, I switch to Wind Sub as Cloyster bizarrely just sets up Hail. Earthquake then gets the KO, so all that's left is Glalie, and he seems to only have Crunch, which does basically no damage. It does drop our defense, and then after we fire off an Earthquake, Glalie's Moody ability does give him a double attack boost, but even then, some quick math tells me that it's safe to stay in on another Crunch and take the KO with a second Earthquake. That was another tricky fight, but now we've got just one Elite Four member left. He immediately leads with his Kingdra, so my lead choice ends up being a mistake. I make the hard switch to Meryl as Kingdra hits a fairly strong Hydro Pump. Another one on the second turn suggests that Drake's lead might be choice locked, but we'll never know since our play rough gets a clean KO. That then brings in Steelix, which is pretty weird since even in this ROM hack, Steelix is not a dragon type. He's just got his standard steel ground typing, so I decide to stay in and nail him with a liquidation. An iron defense means that a second liquidation won't get the KO, so on the following turn I switch to Swabla, gambling that Steelix might just go for a second iron defense, and even if he doesn't, Fluffy will keep us safe from too much damage. Since it is just iron defense though, Swabla gets the KO at full HP, and Drake brings in his Altaria for the mirror. But Swabla's holding a choice spec, so I need to switch out as Drake's Altaria sets up Dragon Dance. The thing is, if he has the same moveset as he does in Vanilla Emerald, he can't really do much to Changlong at all, so that's what I'm banking on, and whether that's true or not, the AI simply decides to keep setting up Dragon Dances, which means that Changlong can put Altaria to sleep with Yawn, and then get the kill with 2 flash cannons without taking any damage. With Salamence out fourth, I decide to switch to Wind Sub. A flamethrower does very little damage thanks to Thick Fat, and then with our Choice Scarf, we can outspeed and get the KO with an overkill Glacial Lance. Flygon is Drake's last Pokemon, but another quad-effective Glacial Lance is all it takes to win us the battle. So now it's time for the final fight of the playthrough. Without an electric type, this might get tricky, but we're gonna do whatever it takes. Wallace leads with his typical Wailord, and I lead with Brellspout. With a Choice Band adaptability boosted Leaf Blade, he cleanly fells Wailord, and I breathe a sigh of relief. But Milotic comes in second, and now I have a decision to make. Can Brellspout get the one-shot? If he can, that would put us in an incredible position. But if he can't, he's probably gonna die to an Ice Beam. For better or for worse though, I decide to put my faith in Brellspout one last time. And then my heart drops as Milotic moves first. But Brellspout survives! And even better, he gets another clean KO with a second Leaf Blade. That brings in Wallace's Gyarados, so I hard switch to Changlong on a Surf. Gotta love those standard Emerald movesets. A Dragon Dance on the next turn doesn't matter, since he's almost certainly stuck with Earthquake as his only physical attack, and Shockwave is enough for a clean 2-shot. But yeah, if this guy knew Waterfall, we would have been in huge trouble. Wallace is down to his last 3 Pokemon now, starting with the always obnoxious Tentacruel. A speedy Hydro Pump hits Changlong for massive damage, but that lets our goat get off a Yawn. Then I switch to Swabla on Hydro Pump number 2, before Tentacruel falls asleep and grants a safe switch to Wind Sub, who, with a Choice Scarf, outspeeds and takes the KO with a single Earthquake. Fifth, though, is Ludicolo, and with Double Team, this guy can still cause some serious problems. It's nowhere near over yet. I start on a switch to Swabla, who knows Aerial Ace, but since she comes in on a Leech Seed, I decide to then switch to Changlong on the presumed Double Team. But sadly, Ludicolo just goes on the offensive, and with a Surf, he ruthlessly murders Changlong. My poor sweet boy. He truly was the greatest of all time, and he got us out of some crazy tough situations. It breaks my heart that he fell so close to the end, so close to victory. And the tragedy doesn't end there, because I foolishly bring in Brellspout next, desperately hoping that he can get the revenge kill with a single adaptability boosted Sludge Bomb, but he can't. It's just not strong enough, and with another Surf, Ludicolo claims his second victim. To make matters worse, after bringing Swabla back in, Wallace heals with a full restore, effectively making Changlong and Brellspout's sacrifices null. But with a special attack boost from Torch Song, Swabla is able to slowly whittle away at Ludicolo with Moonblast for big damage, and Draining Kiss for some much needed recovery. It's tight, but she does get the KO. and with Ludicolo down, Wallace is left with nothing but his last Pokemon, Whiscash. I switch to Marill as Whiscash goes for an Earthquake for less than 50%. Amnesia on turn 2 means that Marill is free to fire off a Play Rough, but since it too does less than 50%, we're not out of the woods quite yet. A second Earthquake leaves Marill with a sliver of HP, and with another Play Rough, she brings Whiscash into the red. At this point, we know that Wallace will prioritize the kill over healing, so I bring in Shupt on one final Earthquake, which importantly boosts our Rage Fist. The full restore comes out on the next turn, but with the boost in damage, Rage Fist now does over 50%. And with one last hit on the following turn, Shupt takes the final KO, winning us not just this brutal battle against Wallace, but the entire run. This playthrough was so much fun. It was exactly what I was looking for. Not entirely devoid of challenge, but not so difficult that it gave me anxiety. If you haven't been keeping up with the saga that is my attempt at a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Run and Bun, you might not know that my mental was at an all-time low before playing this game, and the sheer charm of Emerald Seaglass was enough to bring me out of that funk and get me into a much better headspace. I seriously cannot recommend this game enough if you're looking for a more casual ROM hack to sink your teeth into. Huge shout out to Nemo622 for all of their hard work with this ROM hack. A link to where you can find more information about Emerald Seaglass is in the description down below. As always, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, it'd be great if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Or don't, I don't know, but I do know that you should follow me on Twitch to keep up with streams of my current ROM hack challenges. Stay tuned for more Nuzlocke videos, and until then, remember to always, always, always play around the critical hit.